She fined a dying woman from her hospital bed. Not a landlord, not a bank, not a government official with a badge issued by anyone who actually voted for her. A neighbor, a woman who moved onto the same street 11 years after everyone else, rewrote the rules of a club nobody asked for, and then collected money from people who were too exhausted, too grieving, or too afraid to ask the one question that would have ended it all. And the question was this: is any of this even legal? The video you are about to watch is not a rant. It is not a compilation of angry comments from a neighborhood Facebook group. It is the documented, time-stamped, legally verified account of what happened on one cul-de-sac in America when one man decided to stop paying fines he did not owe, and instead started reading the paperwork he had been ignoring for 4 years. What he found inside that paperwork is the reason this story matters beyond one street, beyond one neighborhood, beyond one woman with a laminated badge and a golf cart she bought from a retired groundskeeper. What he found is that millions of Americans are paying money right now to organizations that have no legal authority to collect it, not because the law is on those organizations' side, but because most people never call the bluff. Picture a Saturday morning in a quiet American suburb, the kind of street where people wave at each other from driveways and kids ride bikes until the light changes. The kind of street where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen, and when it does, everyone watches from behind their blinds because getting involved feels like a risk nobody budgeted for that week. Now put a folding chair on that sidewalk. Put a woman in it with a thermos of coffee, a laminated badge, 2 handmade signs, and a son standing next to her with a phone pointed at the house across the street. Put a chalk line running from curb to grass with the words HOA property line, do not cross, written in thick block letters on the driveway side. And then put a widower on his front porch watering his rosemary, not saying a single word. He is not afraid because he is unarmed. He is silent because in his shirt pocket, folded twice, is a certified mail return receipt with her signature on it. And in his kitchen, on the counter, is a manila folder 3 inches thick. And in his phone, in his left pocket, with the screen off, is an audio recording of her tearing up the document that proved she had lost 3 months ago. He is silent because he already knows how this ends. She does not. By the time you finish this video, you will understand exactly how a quiet man with no legal training, no political connections, and no desire for a fight systematically dismantled 4 years of illegal fines, protected 5 of his neighbors from losing money they could not afford to lose, and did it all without raising his voice once. You will also understand something that goes beyond this one story. You will understand how to identify whether your own HOA has any legal authority over you at all. You will understand what documentation actually looks like when it is built with intention. And you will understand why the most dangerous bully in America is not the loudest one in the room. It is the one who learned early that most people will pay almost anything to avoid a confrontation on their own front porch. Most people, not all. This is the story of Walter Kalmar, 214 Airland Ridge Drive, and the morning he stood on his own porch and let a woman call the police on him because he knew something she did not. He knew exactly whose son dispatch was going to send. One morning, she used chalk to mark my driveway. It surprised me when I saw it there. Not angry, just quiet surprise. That line stayed through rain and wind. Weeks passed before anyone spoke of it. Her way of saying something without words. Something changed after that day. The air felt different around us. That rosemary gets water each Saturday, rain falling or sky clear, through times that lifted me up and moments that weighed heavy. On the morning they lowered Ellen into the ground, I still turned the hose on afterward. She put that plant in the soil, after all. Plus, routines like this keep your bones from scattering when grief cracks open your chest. Here's why knowing him matters. Before she came toward the house with chalk in hand, the way he stood there made it clear who he was, even without words. That moment on the porch said enough about his nature. She approached slowly, the sun hitting the pavement just right. What he did next fit perfectly with how he'd always been. Chalk scraped lightly as she bent down to write. He watched, arms crossed, face unreadable at first. Then something shifted, small but noticeable. You see, actions like his don't come from nowhere. They grow out of years shaped by habits and choices. This one afternoon carried echoes of older patterns. Right now, you've heard bits of it. Still, finding out how someone ends up somewhere matters more than just the outcome. Here's where it truly started. Forget the weekend detail. Start earlier, way at the front. Back then, folks actually smiled when they said hello. That block felt like home, long before everything changed. Out of nowhere, the story on Arland Ridge Drive skipped straight past markings on pavement. 9 votes came first. Then a woman noticed how quiet can seem like agreement when everyone around stays still. That morning, I stayed still on my porch. Fear wasn't the reason. 3 months of getting ready had led me right there. Through mistakes and long lessons, I discovered something. Quiet beats rushing. A ready person facing one who isn't. Stillness becomes strength. That morning, it finally made sense. Something I needed back then, but didn't get. Not shouting over her wins the moment. Staying calm while she rambles does. Structure matters more than volume. Letting words spill from her without reacting shifts the ground. Silence builds strength better than noise ever could. Out near the bend of that dead-end street, a police car began its turn. She dialed 911 about someone seated in their yard chair, minding a watering can. That person sat still, on his own porch, doing nothing much at all. It hadn't hit her yet who'd been marked on that door's edge. Somehow, it slips minds just how fine a street feels when no one's counting points. Back then, in 1998, I brought Ellen along with me to Arland Ridge Drive, also dragging a used couch we nearly scrapped over. 3 full weeks passed while we disagreed. Her heart set on beige, mine on practicality, something tough enough to handle life. The pale one stood its ground. Often hers did. Through all of those years after, right up until now, that quiet lane delivered just what we'd quietly expected upon buying the house, the kind with stairs and a view, at the hush of a looped road's end. Now I look back, that shift on the block feels clear. It crept in quiet, like fog across pavement, so gradual I missed it then. Bad turns often come without warning sounds. Back in 1998, we signed up for a group that asked nothing but time. Pay $35 yearly, fire up grills each July 4th, drop flowers by homes where grief settled in. No one eyed how short your grass stood, not even a note taken on whether mulch ran red or black. Back then, giving wasn't about being seen. It felt natural, like dropping coins into the warm wooden tray during Sunday service. Doing it without expectation mattered. What held weight was knowing the group needed it. Showing up quietly made a difference. Linda Vance showed up across the dead-end street back in 2009, quiet at least early on. Cookouts found her showing up, dish in hand, a potato salad folks left alone yet still praised. Her husband tagged along those initial years, though later vanished without much explanation. A change crept into her, slow and unseen by any of us, long before we realized it had gone past fixing. Running for president of the group in 2020, she stepped into a role others passed on. Not one person raised their hand to join her. This type of work usually drags people down, more chore than cause, unless someone shows up who sees it differently. 9 members cast ballots for Linda. Unchallenged, she took the seat. By next year's meeting, the rules were remade so completely that what once felt casual now stood firm, almost like law. It started with little things, things you just let go without saying much, like trash bins left out once night fell, or holiday lights coming down fast, always gone by the second week. Then there was the grass. She'd check it somehow, mark it at exactly 4 inches, never telling anyone when she might show up. Something you mutter through bites of food, later lost beneath sleep's weight. It begins like this, never a bold statement, never a challenge thrown down. Instead, tiny hassles stack up slowly, each making the following easier to swallow without protest. Later on, I kept turning it over in my mind, how ordinary people, just going day to day, ended up surrounded by unspoken laws like silt piling where water slows. No one meant for it to happen. It wasn't stupidity that let it grow. More often, it was fatigue, distractions, the weight of tiny battles adding up until giving ground seemed easier than pushing back. Wrong that number turned out to be. Clear to me today, yet clear too is how countless others walking everyday paths are running that same math at this very moment, yet won't spot the error until penalty letters show up in their mailboxes. Out of nowhere, her move broke every unspoken rule on the block. It began with the shade of mulch she chose. Some payments slip through your hands quiet, not from defeat, but because arguing burns too much when peace costs less. Other times you let it go, since the one who matters fades slow beside you, leaving no strength to wrestle small judgments over grass height or garden lines. That Tuesday after lunch, 2 years into Ellen Bean's sick, I handed over the money. It took $75 to settle the first ticket. The ground cover around our place had turned dull, sort of dusty brown. Some rule change popped up out of nowhere, written just days earlier, stuck online like nobody needed to know. They wanted that reddish wood chip now, the kind from cedar trees. Telling her about it felt impossible, so I stayed quiet. At the kitchen table, pen scratching paper, I filled out the check, slid it into an envelope, then stepped outside, carried it down the curved driveway next door. Now it hits me. There was a single thing I forgot to say first. It sits there, obvious only after the fact. By whose power? Still, I didn't. Ellen's seen the doctor Wednesday, then another session lined up for Thursday. By Friday, my mind was ahead. Next week loomed close. Sending that $75 check wasn't just payment, it was quiet. A small weight lifted from someone resting behind a wall, breathing softly in the dark. She needed me present. That paper slip mailed off meant one less thing pulling me outward. $150 got taken for leaving a garden hose out one Saturday morning. Next came $300 because the numbers on the box were dark gray, not copper-colored like they wanted. Every charge went unpaid at first, but then settled in full. The warnings showed up sealed inside plastic sheets, stuck right onto the metal door of the mailbox by someone who walked there. Finding those slips became part of coming back after work. Without opening them wide or checking details, I dropped each into a cluttered drawer where old receipts collect dust and forgotten letters wait untouched. That morning, lying in the hospital bed, Ellen covered 2 fines on her own. She asked me to fetch the checkbook. With quiet hands, she filled out the payments. No grumbling, nothing sharp in her voice. Then came the words, "Handle it, don't argue with her now." I share this so you feel what those fines really took, not how much money moved. Something else was spent instead. Later on, after Ellen passed away, those penalty letters kept showing up like life just carried on without pause. Same old house stood there. Same metal box by the road caught each envelope. The streets around held their usual hush. Yet the person behind the walls had shifted, though for months I could only move through days as someone defined by loss, signing checks for late fees, then retreating into a kitchen where silence pressed harder than noise ever did. Here's why I'm saying this. It isn't about pity. It's about making clear how harsh it is to go after those already worn down. Linda didn't have the full picture of what I'd been through. Still, she saw I paid without arguing, so, in her mind, nothing else counted. Peace isn't what some are after. Obedience fits their needs better. When sorrow weighs on a man, his surrender comes without effort. A fresh envelope landed in my box 3 days later. This round, the name on it wasn't mine. That Thursday night in October, he walked toward me along the path, holding his hat like older men often do when they're ready to say something hard. It showed how much it weighed on him just to be there. 78-year-old Bill Henderson once taught shop class. For 35 years, he showed teenagers how to work with wood, follow plans, complete projects start to finish. His wife Margie lived in memory care nearby, already there 2 years. He made the trip each day, rain or shine, stopping only when roads turned too icy, though even then he often still went. Down he sank into the porch seat, Ellen's old spot, where she'd sip tea with a book across her lap when the sun first hit. No greeting came out of him. Instead, the shoebox landed softly on the little table, placed just so between us, his eyes lifting straight to mine. Buried within lay 26 neat slips, each marked with dates, fastened tight, lined up like tools on a pegboard. Old habits stick around long after quitting time. $4,800 altogether, built up slow across 24 months. Leaves and yard waste left on the pavement, a faded campaign placard still taped inside the glass, lingering long after rules allowed. That chipped bird bath, Linda called it junk twice before marking penalties, then once more just last spring. 30 days. That is how long he had left before things turned serious. Linda wrote it herself, no lawyer involved. Payment needed to clear by then, otherwise papers would start moving against the house. Her signature at the bottom made it real. Not a warning exactly, but close enough. The kind of note someone sends when they are done waiting. Shaking just a bit, his fingers trembled as he handed it over. Not because of old bones. Age doesn't rattle him like that. Time has taught me how Bill moves when something weighs heavy. Softly, almost under his breath, came the question, did I believe she'd really go after the house? That was when I said I'd look into it. Hold on. The thing that shifted everything wasn't some sudden personal crisis. For 4 years I'd swallowed the cost, paid the fees without protest, convinced resistance was pointless. Then, facing an elderly man, 78 years old, he told me he saved cash meant for his wife's burial. Why? A person with a plastic ID card made him fear losing his home. That moment rewired my thinking. That cash belonged to him. Right from his mouth I heard it. Kept separate on purpose. Payment was next in line. That morning I headed straight to her office. Ruth Aldana was waiting. Posture steady, voice clear. 45, no rush, eyes sharp like she'd already figured out what most people wouldn't say. The fee? $350, paid up front, and somehow it felt too little for how much space she filled in just 60 minutes. 4 years' worth of HOA documents gone through in under 12 minutes. Glasses came off. She looked up. One question followed. This HOA, did Mr. Kalmar even know it was optional? It wasn't me. That single line shifted every moment that followed. That afternoon showed me something clear. Kindness won't shield anyone, not you, nor the person next door. Safety comes from going through documents slowly. Each line matters. All of it counts, especially on days when exhaustion pulls at your eyes. Grief doesn't pause just because your hand holds a pen. It lingers while the stamp sticks under thumb pressure. The walk back indoors feels heavier than before, though nothing changed outside. Linda's driveway stood empty when Bill finally collected what he was owed. That came later, though. The truck had left long before. That moment changed everything. When I began looking through the documents, her actions followed without pause. What came after made it clear this wouldn't fade quietly. No warning, just motion, a shift too firm to ignore. It kept moving because she did. It feels good to get it right, especially after people figured you'd never even try. What matters is showing up, even if they thought you wouldn't last. Quiet proof works better than loud promises anyway. Turns out effort surprises more than talent sometimes. Doing the thing says what words can't. Proof lands differently when it arrives late but solid. Ruth Aldana put it straight. When an HOA holds real power, like issuing fines, placing liens, or enforcing rules, it's because that authority lives in each home's deed inside the neighborhood. This rule isn't temporary, it's buried in a legal document known as a covenant. Since it travels with the property, escaping it later won't work. Ownership means inheriting those terms, whether you signed up willingly or not. Out near Arland Ridge, there wasn't any official tool like that. As I stayed seated opposite her workspace, Ruth dug into property files from the county. Not one document turned up. There were no binding agreements noted, no limits filed with deeds either. Instead, what stood was a local group acting just like an HOA, only pretending. Each fee I handed over during those 4 years, according to her, it counted as giving. Home was where I ended up, yet the engine kept running while time slipped by in silence. Inside that parked vehicle, minutes piled one after another like unread letters left unopened. Later that day, while staring out the window, memories of Ellen filled my mind, her signing checks between IV drips. Just before sunset, an image came back. Bill perched on the edge of the steps, fingers curled around his worn hat. After standing there a while, motionless, I stepped through the door, moved toward the kitchen, pulled out a chair. The pen touched paper once the words began forming in rows. A single sheet. The words were calm yet exact. Right away, it made clear I no longer took part in the Arland Ridge Homeowners Association by choice. From this moment forward, their supposed control over me, my land, or what belonged to both, ended. This note counted as proper warning, cited straight from Section 4, Paragraph 2 of their rules. That clause about leaving, crafted by Linda long ago, or passed down, sat unused until now, likely never thought real by her. Monday morning found me at the bank, getting it notarized. Later that day, off it went by certified mail, with a return receipt asked for. Wednesday morning, just after 11:40, Linda Vance put her name on the line. The green card is now in my possession. That Thursday came around, bringing the usual board gathering. Attendance wasn't mine. Patricia Ortiz, still fresh in her seat, listened while Linda recited my note out loud, delivered like a funeral speech someone finds deeply satisfying. Afterward, Linda pushed for an official vote just to confirm they'd received it, a move so off-mark, I paused, briefly suspecting one of them might have wanted things to go precisely this way. That paper signed by Linda wasn't merely routine. Proof sat inside those lines. She'd seen it, studied it, agreed. Not just ink on a page, but solid ground beneath my feet. Like passing a key, quiet and sure, into a house full of coming fights. That evening, an unmarked envelope appeared beneath my door. Patricia had made copies of the meeting notes the next afternoon. Inside, nothing was written. Many moments later, I still returned to thinking about that slip of paper. Doing what matters, even when speaking up feels too risky, requires its own kind of strength. A fresh folder got the meeting notes tucked inside. On its label, black Sharpie spelled out Arland Ridge False Claims. Just like that, it could have stopped, but it didn't. 7 days later, another notice showed up, taped to my mailbox. $1,250 owed, called an unauthorized resignation charge. Never heard of it before. Showed up the same week I left. Difficult moments aren't new to me. At 54, I faced talks that cut deep, years that dragged, mornings where getting up felt like losing. There's a gap. One shows rage, another reshapes truth by force. Pressure changes some people's view of what's real. Linda Vance showed up at my door weeks later, just after the official letter arrived. A piece of paper changed hands. $1,250 owed, she said. Her voice curled around sweetheart, like it was supposed to fit, like I'd shrink into it without thinking. Don't imagine for a second that moment slipped past me. It didn't. That word hits hard every time it's tossed by someone sure you'll fold instead of push back. Outside came next, but the recorder was live long before that. This routine took root just days after my son said words about tidiness. In my left pocket rested the phone, dark screen. A small red light pulsed like heartbeat. Out came the photocopied minutes from my rear pocket, the one Patricia slipped beneath my door. Her name sat at the end of the page, sharp like a price tag on bread. I offered it forward. She stared, just twice the count of a breath. After that pause, fingers pulled paper apart once, then once more. There we stood, me on the porch steps, her beside her boy's rolling camera, eyes possibly peeking from windows opposite, and my own device humming low in fabric, swallowing each sound. Just like that, she whispered. Gone now. It never was. 4 seconds passed without a word. After that pause, my voice broke through. Linda, your bylaws were never opened. It hit her slowly, clutching those ripped papers on my doorstep, each piece a proof of what she'd admitted was real, not realizing maybe that snapping them meant capturing her voice saying it was genuine. Inside her home, tucked in the board records book she kept as president, sat the untouched original. Earlier that day, before walking out, I'd stashed 2 extra duplicates aside from the copy now scattered between her fingers. Quick recovery, that one. Pretending the past 10 seconds never occurred. Linda did that better than anyone. The paper, she said, wasn't real. By month's end, her claim would be filed against my home. Word spreading door to door about who I am. That part came straight after. That was kind of you, Linda. Hope your morning turns out well. Back through the door, I stepped. Steady hands rested on the tabletop, something I didn't expect. The recording clicked off without a sound. Date and time became its name in the folder. Copies flew out. My inbox caught one, Ruth Aldana another, while the third landed where I'd stashed it days earlier, just in case. There sat a quiet thing, not anger, cold, sharp like light through ice. When someone gives you what you needed without knowing they did, a gift wrapped in their own mistake. Stillness where fire might have been. The moment clicks shut. Everything falls into place. Not triumph, just certainty. Their move, your advantage. No shouting required. That afternoon handed me a lesson I should have known sooner. Not moving doesn't mean you're checked out. Stillness on the surface can hide sharp attention beneath. When readiness meets silence, the other person tends to fill the quiet, often revealing more than they meant to. Her next move made clear what Ruth had tried to tell me all along. This instance included a lawyer by her side. I want to talk about the truck. Some days it feels like the truck's been around longer than I have. This one rolled off the lot in 2009. Came into my hands secondhand 2 years later. Mileage? High enough that I only mention it to people who've earned the full story. Ellen always laughed, said that old thing would still run when we were gone. My reply usually involved how roughly I treated him, so maybe her bet wasn't bold at all. Washing happens often. Oil swaps never wait past due dates. 11 years now, sitting right here where I left it. Engine off, no trouble ever. Before dawn on a Tuesday, just past 4:17, the footage shows Kyle approaching in a black hooded jacket. A glint of metal pokes from his right grip. His eyes lock onto the lens. No pause, no hesitation. Fastening a pale towing slip to the mirror with a plastic tie, he moves without rush. After that, the sharp side of what might be a key drags along the door's surface. It goes from front to back, measured, heavy, leaning into each stroke like it means something. A long mark cut deep, crossing 40 inches. It broke the surface shine, reaching down to the base layer below. Finished, he headed down the driveway, gave a small nod toward a figure near the edge of the loop. I adjusted the lens. There stood Linda, wrapped in a housecoat, hands tucked tight across her chest, lit faintly by the lamp above as she stared into the night. 4 a.m., quiet, eyes fixed on her boy marking an old man's vehicle. Inside, I stepped. A second cup of coffee filled my hands. After that silence, the phone lifted, non-emergency number dialed. Here's how it went when I spoke on the phone. My address came first, straight out. Then the case numbers, 7 total, already recorded. What happened next? I told her exactly what I saw. A car got damaged while parked on someone's land. A fake towing slip showed up, signed by nobody real. Someone stepped onto the property too early in the morning, 4:17 exactly, with proof caught on video and sound. That last comment? Made on purpose, clear and slow, just so the dispatcher would write it down. For clarity, Deputy Daniel Kalmar should not respond. He happens to be my son. This needs noting officially as a separate party involvement. Let it stand documented he's family. From the start, my son made one thing clear. Reach out to dispatch. Contacting his personal phone was off limits. Staying within protocol mattered most. Each instance followed the same path, just as agreed. Not once did I stray from what we decided. When things reached their peak, consistency became key. Every document filed carried weight simply because favoritism played no role. Following through wasn't about rules, it reflected respect. 40 minutes passed before Deputy Rivera showed up. A photo was taken of the scratch by her. The tow notice got its picture too. Twice she stared at the doorbell video. Names went into her notebook, one after another. Her voice came out in a voice I still hear today. A piece of paper signed without permission doesn't become proof just because someone says so. That yellow form Mr. Kalmar handed over? Not a notice, just deception wearing different clothes. Fake approval for hauling cars off private land crosses into dishonesty if nothing else. 8. That number landed on the folder's edge, scrawled near the flap. Her voice offered digits first. Case numbers passed between us like unread letters. A fresh one arrived in reply from me. The old ones faded into the background. It took me merely 90 days to really get it. Each move Linda pushed, those handbills, the phony repossession slip, the mark on the car, even that legal document she bought when her lawyer walked away, all of it stacked up without her knowing. Not only was she pressing down hard, but slowly handing me proof, piece by messy piece, dropping envelopes full of it right at my steps. Stopping won't happen just because you begin to record each incident. Most bullies push harder once they sense documentation has begun. The moment notes appear, pressure often increases. Written records tend to trigger more attacks rather than halt them. Persistence becomes their response when accountability looms. Action follows paper like shadow follows light. That Friday evening, just 3 days prior, my last talk with Daniel took place. During it, he mentioned asking to move districts. All forms were already submitted. Starting Monday, the shift would officially kick in. A single day made the difference. Late by just that much, it altered every outcome. It happens quietly each time. One brief instant where those peeking through curtains must choose. No grand gesture needed. No shouting into microphones or signing papers or stepping forward in crowded rooms. Only an unspoken step toward one edge or the other when things finally unfold. Here's how it actually went. Knocking started at my door, so I answered. A lawyer's name is what they got from me. Paper and signatures, those came from them, not me. No meetings happened because of me. My neighbors showed up by themselves. Group texts never came from my phone. Organizing wasn't on my list. Campaigns? Never touched one. Right off the start, Ruth was clear on this point. Walter, let it stay spread out. Never pull it into one spot. Should she go ahead with legal action, every single one of you would need separate filings. 4 lawyers, 4 court matters. She won't hold up under that weight. Then I poured hot water through ground beans. At my kitchen table, ears open, I stayed quiet and heard it all. Every time someone asked me what they should do, I gave the exact same reply. A withdrawal letter. Send it by certified mail. Get a return receipt. After that, I'd send them back where they came from. Beyond the gate appeared Bill Henderson. Up the path he walked, clutching a sheet, his resignation scrawled across it. The page wasn't blank. It carried traces of Linda's prior warning on its reverse. This small truth settles deeper than words allow. Defiance takes shape when you answer suppression using their own document as your canvas. Fence paint got Tom and Jenna Reyes into trouble. A rule made half a year later said the shade didn't match. $1,100 gone, just for wood out back on land they owned. Paperwork went out Friday afternoon. By next week, Marta Chen, living 3 houses over, did the same thing. Bicycles left by her grandson on the grass caught city attention. 4 times they came back with notices. Each visit ended with another ticket stacked beside training wheels meant for weekend rides. $1,600 piled up over small frames rusting under sun and rain. Machines built for a child now counted as risk, judged unfit near sidewalk edges. Out of everyone, Linda picked these folks. Living off a pension, the man was alone since his wife passed. Saving bit by bit, the pair wanted something secure around their yard. Every Saturday and Sunday, little ones ran through the woman's house. She made sure things stayed nice for them. It wasn't those who might resist that caught her attention. Instead, it was the ones she figured wouldn't stand a chance. Out of everything, it started with numbers failing by mid-morning. The math just wouldn't hold up when tested again after breakfast. That morning, I did not invite anyone to step out. Not a word passed my lips about what would unfold. Still, Patricia stepped over the chalk mark onto my yard, quiet as breath. Then Bill Henderson descended his porch, cup in hand, moving across the road without hurry. One after another they arrived. 8 figures now rooted on my lawn, positioned exactly where Linda's line meant to mock me. Silence filled the room. It was enough just being there. It hit me there, after 4 long years. Something shifted on that corner, just like it used to when Ellen was still around. A quiet kind of warmth returned, as if neighbors once again kept an eye open without being asked. Out came her words, spoken right there among everyone. A final error with no space for more. Right then, when Linda lifted her phone and punched in 911 on speaker, I saw it coming, every second after. The way she paused before pressing call told me everything. It wasn't down to planning. It didn't come from any scheme of mine. Blame goes to Daniel. He'd mentioned weeks before that Arland Ridge sat in his patrol area on weekend mornings. Information stuck. Dispatch tends to assign the nearest available deputy for domestic issues close enough to active shifts. That detail shaped what followed. He'd been asked,
By me not to answer if my name came up. The note showed up in the dispatch record. Still, I couldn't control which person got assigned when the alert came through another operator's line. Her fingers pressed each digit without her realizing. That truth was still waiting to be found. Out came the cruiser, easing along the bend like it always does when the call tag says noise complaint instead of trouble. Up stood Linda, quick enough that her thermos wobbled sideways onto the pavement. That cup stayed where it landed. She turned at the hum of tires, arranging her features just like back in those long community meetings she used to lead. A look I knew too well, one worn by someone who believes the outcome is settled before the talking begins. A flash of movement made Kyle turn, lifting his phone just as the cruiser appeared. Red light pulsing on screen. The stream hadn't cut out yet, every sound feeding through clear. Then came tires on gravel, sharp and close. The cruiser rolled to a stop against the sidewalk edge. Silence followed as the motor died. A hinge creaked when the door swung outward. Only after the officer rose did Linda's grin vanish, so fast that sound of plastic striking pavement reached me before her face fully registered shock. Beneath the shadow of the porch stood a figure sharing the surname with Deputy D. Kalmar. Her eyes met mine, then dropped to the badge, lifted back up. That instant, 4 years of sureness drained like water through fingers. His eyes stayed away from mine, never a glance. The cruiser door shut with a solid click. Then he placed one hand on his belt, just resting there, and spoke only to Linda, voice even, like when facts are known, yet someone still has to say them out loud. This is about the emergency alert we received here. What exactly happened? Officer here following up on a distress signal from your location. Could you describe what went wrong just now? That moment stayed with me. 15 minutes shaped by calm, not spectacle. No shouting, no grand gestures. Instead, a young man stood steady when stress would have blurred everything else for anyone else. His focus came through in small actions, each one precise. Pressure usually warps judgment. Here, it didn't. He moved like someone who knew exactly where he needed to be. The weight of the situation sat on him without bending him. Most would have cracked. He just kept going. Quiet strength does more than noise ever could. From memory, he recited the exact words she had signed, section after section, line by line. He cited the rule about leaving. The official papers from the county stated clearly no restrictions were filed on that part of the property. With everyone watching, the neighbors gathered close, cameras rolling just as she'd set up. He turned to her and wondered aloud if her group had ever sent anything in writing saying I was officially out. Linda Vance spoke up, right there in the quiet of the cul-de-sac on a Saturday morning, her voice clear before everyone gathered on the street. Yes, is what she said. A single word, just one moment. When someone finally looked at the papers, it all collapsed, every piece resting on that silent trust. The foundation cracked without warning. Back towards the cruiser, Daniel moved, just before shutting the door. A pause came then. His eyes landed on Linda, skipping past me, his voice low like a secret, yet sharp so each word fed clearly into the mic. Funny thing, really. My dad phones often, but those calls, they go straight to voicemail. The job sent me here since I happened to be nearby, barely a couple minutes away, which explains why I'm on your doorstep right now. Down went Patricia's hand, away from her collarbone at last. The coffee sip Henderson had paused mid-air, slipped past his lips now. A blink later, Marta Chen reopened her eyes after shutting them briefly. For once since everything started, the dead-end road became nothing more than pavement and quiet.
Monday brought the truck, exactly 4 weeks since that Saturday. From the kitchen window, steam rose off the coffee pot as I stood there, watching. Linda carried each box herself, stacking them without help at first. When Kyle looked up from his screen, he'd step in now and then. Not a single person stepped outside to wave or speak before they left. A figure stood still, hands at their sides, watching the empty steps. By dawn, a notice leaned in the yard. Whiteboard, bold letters. Now the street feels like it should have changed somehow. Still, nothing shows up new. Same old houses stand where they always did. Mailboxes sit untouched, just how they were before. That broken part in the sidewalk near Reyes's lot, never fixed. Morning light brings the sparrow again, landing by the feeder when my door creaks open. Maybe it knows the noise well, or maybe its timing beats mine every day. Inside the homes, things aren't quite the same anymore. A shift lingers in the air each time I walk Bill back after our Saturday coffee. Hoses stay curled on lawns through the weekends now, forgotten or ignored. Out front, Marta Chen dug soil into beds painted bright, a shade Linda once would have punished without pause, yet silence held firm, since no one steps forward to speak up. Out back, Mrs. Reyes hung some wind chimes by the porch railing. A wooden frame now lines the fence beside our house. Tom made it for growing vegetables. Farther down the block, near two houses I hardly ever visit, a metal hoop stands fixed above a cracked driveway. Young voices bounce around most weekends, just like they do where kids spend time outside. That morning the check showed up. Bill walked right away. $4,800 came back to him thanks to the civil deal. His claim went first, pushed ahead by the lawyer managing all those repayments to Linda. Bill asked for it that way, needing things settled before December ended. He took a seat at my kitchen table. Silence hung there a while. Then his eyes started glistening. I gave him space, poured another cup. No words needed. Back on the porch went Ellen's hummingbird feeder. Taken down 4 years prior, just hours after Linda handed me a ticket for unapproved critter baiting. Stored ever since inside the garage, hidden beneath fabric, untouched by light. Pulled it into daylight that Sunday, scrubbed every corner, refilled the reservoir. The metal hook still held firm, one she'd screwed into place back in 2003, certain about sun angles and tiny birds' habits. It happened. Just 7 days passed. That quickly. Inside one of the kitchen drawers sits the manila folder, not tossed away. Certain documents stay saved not for your own eyes later, but just in case someone nearby might ask for them years from now. Better to be known as the one who kept it safe than the one who cleared space too soon. One word covered the lie I crossed off the tab, taped right over it. Hers. The same word from her address book's first page when we settled into that house. Always there. On every holiday card envelope we ever sent. Home. Every second Sunday, Daniel shows up for pot roast. His hat stays behind on the kitchen counter once he steps in. That Saturday, we never name it now, but right after things ended, he stopped by wearing his uniform. For a breath, he just stood there in the front hall. His eyes landed on the framed green card receipt. Linda's handwriting clear. Almost, he let a smile through. That never happened. Still, it came close. That moment in the kitchen still comes back. If I could speak to me then, 4 years gone, gripping the drawer edge, eyes on a ticket about yard stuff, I'd pause. The year had been relentless. Worth it? That question hung heavy. Thoughts circle often. A glance at paperwork over mulch shades seems small now. Back then, everything weighed more. Questions like that one shaped days. Hard to explain how much. Still remember the light in there. Felt stuck, wondering if pushing forward made sense. Some moments never leave. This thing comes to mind. Maybe it's worth noting. A house gains worth not from neighborhood watch decrees, not from shiny numbers on the post, or wood chips laid just so, or how short the lawn stands under summer sun. Its weight comes from moments lived within walls, faces passing through the entryway. Linda Vance never earned a voice in those matters. No paper handed her power over even a sliver of what Alan and I shaped day by day, year after year. One step onto the pavement changed everything. That stretch of road ignored her claims like yesterday's weather. A year of walking tall meant less than a quarter hour under Saturday light. The concrete spoke without words. Ownership was an idea she carried alone. 15 minutes peeled back every illusion. The asphalt remembered none of her names. From right where I sat on the porch, I stayed put the whole time.